Thank you, David. Good evening, everyone. I'm Abhishek, representing the Fresh Start Hub as the head of strategy. Fresh Start Hub is a startup dedicated to helping immigrants and international students in Canada be successful in finding a job. We offer multiple resources from networking opportunities with organizations and industry leaders and conducting workshops on various aspects of job search process such as resume building, defining your personal brand, job interviews, job search strategies, and many more. We as well offer personalized mentorship where we share our own job search experiences and craft your job transition strategy. But that's not why we are here today. Couple of days ago, we had sent out a survey asking for your feedback on what we can do differently to help you with your job search transition process. We got a lot of wonderful feedback, and among that was hearing from recent immigrants about their job search journey, the experiences that they had, and the challenges that they faced. And that is precisely the reason why we are here today. Fresh Start Hub brings to you the Elevate series, a weekly career chat with immigrants for immigrants, where we will be speaking with two people every Wednesday at 6 p.m. to learn and share with you their career transition journey in Canada, the challenges that they faced, as well as some tips that they discovered and explored during this process. Today, we have with us Divya, who's working as a talent development partner at Cinex, and Rajdeep Gumaste, who's working as a product owner at 407 ETR. Thank you so much, Divya and Raj, for taking out your valuable time and speaking with us.
Thank you, Abhishek, for inviting us over. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So let's get right into it. And my first question to Divya, tell us and the people watching us a bit about yourself. Where do you come from? What did you do before coming to Canada, and what really motivated you to move to Canada?
Oh, there are so many questions in that one. So, as you all know, my name is Divya Chedda. I come from India. I moved to Canada last year itself. In fact, I came right in the middle of the pandemic, if I can say. I still remember the date very clearly. I landed on March 11th, 2020. Uh, Before coming to Canada, my profile has been mostly centered around the organization effectiveness, development, and change management space, the bigger gamut, as you may call it, to be the HR space. So I've worked with organizations like McKinsey and Company, which is widely known. It's a global company, so many people know about it. That's the name it strikes with many of us. Then I worked in the beer sector as well. That was a beer company, Imagine in India brand. And I think the last part of your question was what exactly motivated us. That's an interesting question and a very valid question. Moving to a different country, a different part of the world, when you're in your mid career, you're doing pretty well. Of course, it was a planned decision. It cannot be anything which you just take at the spur of the moment. So I moved here with my husband, and both of us were. He was in fact more keen. When you have a partner, it's like one of the persons is more keen to do something, and then
Right.
the other one just chimes in. So our primary motivation was to explore this part of the world and kind of be in a culture which is so strongly admired for being diverse, multicultural, respectful, and kind of work in this work environment where you can feel all the more respected, and you get experiences of all kinds. So I think that was our primary motivation.
Perfect. Thank you. I do have a lot of follow-up questions, but I'll let Rajdeep introduce himself and ask the same question to you, Rajdeep. What is it that motivated you to move to Canada, and what were you doing before?
Absolutely. So I can give you a bit of an overview of what my career has been and then what motivated me to make the move, right? So I'm a design engineer by qualification. That's sort of my passion. And then I moved on to business analytics and then naturally progressed into a product management role. Now, in and my last product management role in India was for a HCM company called ADP, and I was building out data science products for them, which is kind of an amalgamation of my business analyst roots and the product management profile I eventually ended up picking. And my motivation really to move to this side of the pond, it's multifold really. One is, as Divya said, generally the quality of life, the kind of people you meet, the experiences you have, is certainly a big factor. But apart from that, what I discovered during my experiences is that decisions get made at different times of the day, right? Markets sleep and wake up at different times of the day, and as it is, the IT ecosystem in India is, predominantly for companies that are based in North America, and that kind of led me to believe, or rather, even in my experience, I realized that all of the important decisions were being made while I was asleep in my bed in India, right? So yeah, that was kind of the twofold motivation that I had to sort of make the move.
Wow, love the motivation that you shared, Rajdeep. Thank you for sharing that. So, tell us how was the journey like? Coming to a new country, starting in a new foreign country all by yourself. What did that look like? Did you have fun? Did you come in the winter months, or was it in the summer months?
Well, it was in the fall, like summer going into fall. So it was kind of good because I got to see the onset of winter, which is really important for somebody who comes from tropical climates. Like before coming to Canada, I'd never actually seen snow before in my life, right? So it's that big of a shift for me, at
Oh
least.
wow.
So yeah, I had to really take into consideration, pretty much everything when I made the move. Um, but yeah, when I did come to Canada, it was August the 7th, I think. And I like my job search was already underway even before that. So that's essentially been it's been a good year and a half, I would say.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I'll definitely circle back on you on what that job search looked like. But Divya, to you, when did you come, and what was your experience like? Coming to a foreign country. We know that you came with your husband. So was it any different? Were you feeling anxious and stressed about moving to a foreign country and starting from scratch?
You're taking me back to all the memories, but I love it, Abhishek. So, like I mentioned in my introduction, I came last year in March. Like I said, March 11th, 2020, right? At the onset of the pandemic, I remember. I
Wow.
think just a week after that, borders were closed. I was actually planning to delay my flight just to avoid. I was like, this COVID is going to go away. It's going to last for like a month or so. But nobody had imagined that it would be such a huge shift for the entire globe. So yeah, I mean, like I came then, and it was, of course, there was a lot of anxiety and stress. Like between me and my husband, he was already here. He came in October 2019. I came too, but I did my formalities and I went back. I continued with my job because both of us felt that if one of us can get a job first, and then the second person can join, because you need to manage your finances too. I'll be very very honest over here. So luckily, when I came, I think within a week or so, I think he was in his final interviews, and he's a marketing professional, so he got a job. And then when I came, I really did not know. Like it was just start of the pandemic. Like all the organizations were trying to pivot. They didn't know what to do about it. Then the hiring freeze started, and the entire cycle how it went. So of course it was stressful because there were so many things you come with, right? You have your dreams, you have your aspirations, and then you come here, then you're hit by the pandemic. So you need to be like you say that just adapt to that change. So I mean that was the situation I was in as well.
Okay. Interestingly, you mentioned that you worked for McKinsey, big brands like McKinsey, and for the Bira brand in India. Did those, big brands on your resume help you in your job search process? And I know that I'm jumping the gun here, but how was that? Having those big brands on your resume, those experiences in your job search process in Canada.
Yeah, no, you asked a very valid question, Abhishek. People who come from India might know Bira as a brand. It's an interesting brand, but I'll be very honest. It's not a very well known brand in this part of the world. So yes, McKinsey, yes, it's a global firm, and it's a very revered firm as well. It's one of the top strategy consulting firms. So that definitely did help me at times, because okay, like, oh, you've worked for McKinsey. At times I used to talk, and because that's the company people aspire to be in. So because I had spent, around 3 2 years, I think 2.5 to 3 years over there. So my learning curve was also very steep with that firm. So yes, those experiences do help, because when you hold those informational sessions, or when you apply for job applications as well, that experience helps, because you can always say you work for a global firm. Experience is global. They might not know what you did back in your home country, but when you mention that your experience is global, because with McKinsey you work with global clients, that's when they have the notion, okay, this person has that kind of experience. So it definitely helps, but that's not anything which is in your control, right? I mean, you come with the experience you have, and then you have to
Mhm.
kind of use it appropriately, or kind of build upon it.
Okay. Okay. No, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. You did mention a couple of interesting points around conducting informational interviews and really understanding the expectations of people in that foreign country. But I have a question for Raj. Raj, what was your job search process like? You came in the fall months, so you weren't exposed to the harsh extreme winters. But what was your job search process really like, and how did you feel about it?
Um, well, that's a great question actually, but I don't know if it applies to everyone out there today, because I was literally pre-pandemic. It was right on the cusp of, when it all sort of was tossed up in the air, right? So, but then it still is an interesting journey. And I was mentioning earlier, I started my job search a couple of months before I even got to Canada. I think that gave me a really good head start in terms of what it is that people are looking for, what kind of roles am I being considered for. You get rejected all the time during job searches, of course. You have to have a thick skin when you're looking for jobs. But then, you also have to have a certain level of realism to say that, look, I will not have a job ready for me the day I land there, right? There will have to be a search of sorts, and then the search also has to be relevant. In my case, like I said, I got rejected from a couple of places even before I came to Canada, simply because I wasn't in Canada. So that kind of boosted my confidence to say, it's not a thing that I have to be worried about all that much, to the point where I have to cancel my journey itself. I was fairly confident that I would find something.
Mhm.
Maybe not a direct replacement for the kind of role I was doing at the moment, but it would help me sort of get a foothold in this new environment for sure. And so I arrived August 10th ish of 2019, and then I started applying to jobs pretty much the same day. Somewhere along the way, I also had to completely revamp my resume. It was literally it went from a 2-page resume to a 1-page resume for close to a decade of experience. That is something that's completely it's necessary, because you want to put across every single thing you've done, but also not so much that in case you've done a lot, you don't want to bore people with paragraphs of text essentially. And yeah, fortunately, by mid-October, I had this opportunity at 407, which is also kind of interesting, because I was in the middle of like 2 interviews essentially at that time, and it was essentially, I started talking to both, saying, look, I have one final interview left remaining for that one company, and then there's this other. Essentially, I decided to go with 407 simply because it was a full-time job, and it was something that I hadn't been exposed to before, and that is something I enjoy doing as well.
Wow. Wow. No, congratulations. Like in 2 months, you were able to turn around a full-time offer, that's commendable. And again, you did emphasize on the fact that this was the pre-pandemic era, the industry was at an all-time high, but I'm pretty sure, you did a lot of wonderful things that enabled you to, get that opportunity. I want to dig a little deeper into your job search process. You spoke about revamping your resume. What were certain other things that you undertook to ensure that your profile was in the right place? You knew what you were looking for, and you knew that you were applying the right tools and the methods to look for the job that you wanted.
Well, so in that case, right, you have to think like a recruiter sometimes. So when you apply for a job, you also have to sort of think from the opposite side of the table. What is the person even looking for, right? Um, and the other thing I did was really go after every single avenue out there. At the end of the day, I probably applied to the same job from 5 different forums. That may have happened, and I probably got rejected from a few jobs just for that. but you have to take your chances. So I ended up signing up for like LinkedIn jobs as one obvious avenue, and then Indeed is yet another avenue. Monster is yet another avenue. So I didn't even know where I was signed up on. Like, I had so many forums on which I was looking for jobs. I was exhausting every single source out there, as you would, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Those are some great tips. A lot of times, I think as individuals, we tend to rely on a single source, either LinkedIn or Indeed, and then, just use the same resume over and over again and keep applying for jobs. But like you mentioned, you have to really encompass different avenues, encompass, different strategies to enable you to get that job that you deserve, right? Try and try till you succeed. So, thank you for sharing those wonderful tips on the things that you did to land that job within 2 months. I'll get to you, Divya. How was your job search process? How long did you take, and what were some of the things that you incorporated when you were looking for the job in Canada?
Yeah, my journey was, very similar to, Rajdeep's. Like I said, when I came, the organizations were busy pivoting themselves. Nobody knew what was happening. So, of course, it wasn't easy. I'd heard of those great networking events, which happen, in downtown, or let's say, in near Square One, but I never got an opportunity to attend them because they never happened in person.
Absolutely, yeah.
Everything, started to convert into virtual. A little bit of, like a ray of shining hope was that because of that, you could save a lot of time, traveling to attend
Hmm.
the event. Your entire day wasn't being consumed, and more so professionals were working from home. They were more open to, kind of offer you informational interviews, maybe kind of slotting 15 to 20 minutes during their schedule and things like that. So my job search strategy was primarily divided into 2 to 3 buckets, and I kind of give this advice to whoever asks me for any advice as well, like when friends and family. Is one, like job application is a part of it. You have to do it, like it's a hygiene. And there are again things which I can talk about over there. How you can be a little, you know, you can sway things a little here and there. But apart from that, I think reskilling slash upskilling yourself is also important. And the third aspect is informational interviews and networking. And if I were to assign percentages, I would assign the networking bucket or informational interviews maybe like a 50%. I think that really helps you a lot. It really helped me get a job. In fact, the first one, which I didn't take ultimately though. And the second thing is, which I talked about, is reskilling, upskilling, which can be in various ways. If because everybody's situation is different as well, right? If you have the right financial or budgetary support, you can even think of taking up any relevant course, any relevant certification, or joining any professional body which is aligned with your industry, right? If you're a chartered accountant, there can be one. I was into HR, there are others, like HRPA. Then you have these change management certificates, and some courses are in fact freely provided by these newcomer settlement agencies as well, like Access Employment or Job Start, even Fresh Start Hub, right? It's doing a great job in providing those mentoring sessions
Thank
and
you.
things like that, right? That's a good commercial for Fresh Start Hub as well. And the third bucket, of course, is a normal job application. So I kind of targeted these 3 buckets. One, job search, normal applications. But what I tried to do over and above that was, I had a LinkedIn premium, so I had the ability to send in mails, etc. So when you come across a job description, generally it's written over here that this role reports to director so and so, or senior manager so and so, right? So you can always go up to LinkedIn and just do a quick search of like, and we all are very good at doing these searches, right, in this generation. So director this or senior manager this, then you can always send them in mail, send them connection request first, send them in mails with your resume. Hey, I come across this. And then I was actually very honest while writing to them as well. Of course, I had my script ready, which I used to tweak as per that. I was a little vulnerable as well that, okay, hey, I've recently moved and, this is one of the barriers which we faced, but I'm highly interested in this opportunity. I think my experience completely aligns with it. And just like a quick blurb or like 2-3 bullet points about yourself, and then maybe you can attach your resume or something. Like this is, I'm going a little bit deep, but there are things, which you can just go do over and above just the normal job application, because you know that you lack that Canadian experience at this moment. So that's the main reason that you have to do a little extra effort than someone would not have to do who's already here and who's gained that experience. And second bucket which I talked about was upskilling, reskilling. So I came across some volunteering opportunities, and I can name a few over here. Like you have Volunteer Toronto, you have Endeavor Consulting for nonprofits, you have collaboration partners. So Endeavor Consulting and collaboration partners, they kind of do pro bono consulting for nonprofits. So professionals get together there. So I actually did a project with collaboration partners where we worked with a nonprofit called Horizons for Youth. We were working on a board strategy. So I think one, it gives you a lot of satisfaction because you are kind of investing your time towards the good. Second, you're building your network, you're gaining that experience, working with professionals there. There can be many things which you can do, right? You can take up any volunteering opportunity you're interested in. You can be strategic about it as well. Then very late, I think 4 or 5 months down the line, I kind of did a formal certification program as well, ProSci, which was aligned to my career.
Right.
Chain management certification. It did give me a lot of weightage on the resume. You learn all those things, right? I mean, it's a learning curve. As you move along, okay, this is relevant, or I can do that, and if possible, then why not? And third bucket is, yes, like do that cold calling, keep on having those informational interviews. I mean, all of us are intelligent enough, we've made this big decision, we've come over here, we know how to be strategic about it. Look up for your dream companies, look up for people who are working over there, target senior people. I feel that senior people like director and above, they are oftentimes more willing to give their time, and you can always
Absolutely.
write a message after connecting that I'm new here, I'm trying to build on my network, would you be interested in giving me some career advice, or I just want to know more about your industry, what your role is. And you, like I said, you have to be strategic about it. You'll be connecting with those individuals who are aligned with your career motivation as well, or where you want to take your career graph. And then in my case, mostly I used to own all the invites as well. Like, I mean, I used to put the invite in their calendar so that it stays beforehand. I used to send my resume as well. Hey, like it will help you to like know me better, and you can give me some suggestions. And that's a good way to in fact get a resume review
Right.
as well. Like, why not?
Absolutely.
Because they are the professionals, they can give you a lot of great advice. Again, there are things which can be questioned, like whether you should send your resume in advance or not. I kind of did that because I felt that it gives the other person a lot more insight into what you've done, or what you intend to do. But it's not hard and fast that you have to stick to this. You have to like kind of tweak your strategy. So I think doing all these things take you like to, at least it'll take you anywhere positive. That's all I can say. Like, you can do only as much as what is in your control, and then but at least you have to take the right kind of efforts and in the right direction.
Absolutely. You touched upon a lot of nice nuggets, starting from networking to cold calling to sending out in-mails, to, reaching out to people via LinkedIn. Were you aware of all these strategies before you came to Canada, or were these strategies told to you by someone else on that these are the job search application processes that you need to follow? Because like you said, and we've been discussing about it for a while, and Rajdeep hinted on it as well, that networking is a big component of the job search process in Canada. So was this something that was aware to you both, or is this something that you discovered after coming to Canada, and then you had to tweak your search strategy?
I mean, I'm happy to take that first, as I was already speaking. I'll be honest, back in India, I can talk for where I come from, cannot comment on anywhere else. I was not very active, in networking, and it was not a great thing over there. But here, as I entered, and like I said, I came with my husband, so I had some intel because he attended a few events.
Right.
So I came to know that networking is a huge thing over here, and there's a concept of like coffee chats and all in those earlier times, when after office and professionals they did give time for these coffee chats and everything. So I knew about the concept, but when I came over here, like I said, I came right in the middle of the pandemic, like last year in March, when all these things were not happening, in a physical setting. So I kind of had to tweak my strategy, like reaching out, because I literally knew no one over here. Like I didn't have any network, so you have to
Hmm.
build that network from scratch. So sending invites is not difficult. Like you also mentioned that it has to, I know maybe Rajdeep mentioned that you kind of send an accompanying message with it. So it's not difficult to send 50 to 100 invites a day as well. People you are interested in. It just takes like 10 to 15 minutes. You send the accompanying message, then it's up to them to accept it or not, right? I mean, and at times you can even be more strategic about it. Like let's say if you are targeting any dream organization, for example, let's take the example of Deloitte, let's say, okay.
Mhm.
Now there are various articles which their consultants, partners post, or any company you're targeting, and then it has a name. So you can even connect with that person. Hey, I read your article, I like it. Or if there are these networking sessions, right? Or other networking sessions which I used to attend, which were free then because they became virtual, then all those guest speakers, then you can always give reference, okay, I heard you at this event, or I found you interesting. So like all these strategies, I would say.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope, everyone who's listening us, was able to note down everything that you mentioned, because you mentioned some really, really good job search strategies. But to you, Rajdeep, were you aware of, what does it take to, go about the job search process in Canada? Like Divya mentioned, networking, sending out in-mails, connecting with people, coffee chats. I mean, when I was pursuing my MBA at Queen's University and I was told, go and do coffee chats, I'm like, fine, I can have a chat over coffee. That was literally my first impression. But were you aware of the local application processes?
Not to the dot, I will admit, and that's kind of the reason why I had to revamp my resume once I eventually made the move to Toronto, where I am right now. But I'd just like to reiterate the importance of networking in all of this, because the idea to even move to Canada was given to me by a coworker who I still am in touch with. And she recently had a baby boy as well, and we met for that as well. And through her, I know 15 other people who I network with on a weekly basis now. And we are pretty much, talking to each other regarding, hey, my company is looking for this role. Are you interested? They're looking for a
Right.
senior technical product manager. Are you interested? It's literally an informal chat of who has what kind of job opportunities in their respective companies. And, that's what makes the world go around, man. It's people working with other people and helping each other out. That's I agree 100%.
Absolutely rightly said, because I've had a lot of coffee chats now with people, and what I have discovered is that 85% of the jobs are obtained through networking. So a lot of time we spend a lot of time and energy in applying jobs through LinkedIn and Indeed and other avenues that you spoke about, but 85% of the jobs are not even posted on these platforms, because they are taken away through word of mouth. And like you mentioned, would you be interested in working for this organization? I have an opening, right? So it is important for everyone who is coming to Canada or is in Canada looking for jobs to realize the power of networking. It is very important to get in touch with people and have those conversations, like Divya mentioned. Explain what is it that you're looking for. What are your strengths, weaknesses, and how that person can help you in getting that job that you most you most deserve. I want to segue to an important point here. I want to talk about, what were some of the challenges that you faced, Raj, when you were looking for jobs. What is it that perhaps could have been mitigated, could have been avoided, but as an immigrant, as a newcomer in Canada, those were some of the challenges that you faced while looking for jobs in Canada.
Well, I think it came up as part of this conversation as well. A lack of Canadian experience was something, like I couldn't really explain why, but that seemed to be a factor. that somehow if you hadn't worked with like specifically with Canadian clients before, you somehow weren't sort of fit to do that job, which which is obviously not the case, right? As we all know now. But yeah, that was certainly one of the things that I saw. Um, Apart from that, it was, it may be more specific to me, but I don't have a master's degree, and that also has a bearing when it comes to product management roles and director of product management roles. They do prefer to have some sort of an MBA or a postgraduate, even in computers or economics or whatever that field may be. We prefer to have a master's graduate in there. So those are two big things that I'd like to call out. I'm not sure if that helps the listeners much, but in my
No,
personal experience,
I certainly can agree with the Canadian experience aspect, and Divya touched upon it, that the things that she did from a volunteering perspective to gain that Canadian experience, and even folks that I work with 5, 6, 10 years of experience, they still struggle to get that job because they don't have the local Canadian experience. But you brought an important point around education. People looking for higher degrees to give you that credit that okay, you can you'll be a good fit for this particular job. That's an important perspective that you brought onto the table. So thank you for sharing that. Divya, what were some of the challenges that you faced? And we've spoken about the solutions in some way or the other, bridging that local Canadian experience gap. But what were some of the challenges that you faced when you were looking for jobs?
I think very much same as what Rajdeep mentioned. Again, like even Canada is an equal opportunity employer. We all know that. But somewhere, down the line, and maybe, like when you're a newcomer, you have these notions as well. Oh, like I'm rejected because I'm a newcomer. That might not be the case all the time, but you do think about that as well at that time, and that's the reason you get into all these things. Okay, let me do my bit. What I can do. And a lot of it I personally feel, and I've seen that in my case, a lot of it depends on your hiring manager too. How strongly they believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how much they understand your experience. So that's also important, and that is the reason, that is how you can, all the things which I mentioned previously, you can mitigate all of that, because when you're connecting someone with an informational interview. And another small thing which I want to add, which I did a lot late, I think 4 5 months down the line, because as I was attending interviews, there were always like same set of questions I found which were asked. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
tell us about a situation you were in, and what was your role, and what did you do, and how were the results measured. And I remember one of my interviews where one of the hiring managers was not able to ask all the technical questions, like technical as in my role specific questions. She said that, why don't you send me the answers for it later on? And the functional questions, like not the soft skills ones. So I kind of created a 3 4 pages presentation, like a one case study, per page. I came from a consulting company, so even consulting companies make those case studies, right? Where you have that situation, approach, impact, right? So so I kind of created that. I sent it to her, and she really liked it. Though I was not selected for that role, but she was so convinced with it. She said that, I really want to connect with you. I want to give you like 15 minutes of coaching time. We connected over Teams, but till that time, I'd found my present job. So I think, like, I mean, challenges would be there, but you just have to see how you can mitigate. I'm not saying that these are the things which will help you get a job sure shot, like there will be struggles, but this is like one of the advanced things I did. And then I started to use that 3 4 pager case study, sometimes, because all the interviews were virtual. And in some of the interviews, when I'd created this document, whenever they asked me this question, I kind of literally shared my screen, and I took them over, because it was a one-page case study that this was
Right.
the situation, this was the approach, and this was the impact. So this is like one of the, I would say, the crazy things which I just did. I literally used
Mm.
that in my interviews. I remember using it in all the latter interviews, and I don't know if it helped or not, but I felt it was a creative way, and I got that feedback too. Because at times what happens is, hiring managers, recruiters here wouldn't know the kind of work you have done, because your experiences, like my experience, was truly global and universal. Like I'm more into OD, culture, change management space, which kind of stays the same, rather than, if you have worked as an HR business partner or any role, which requires that geographical knowledge or local laws knowledge, then I can still understand. But my experience or my career path was more or less global. So like these were the kind of challenges, and this is how, Abhishek, I tried to kind of mitigate
That
them.
makes sense. That makes sense. One important point that I like to highlight is that networking. One thing that I learned from my own experiences and journey is that we tend to focus on having conversations to get immediate outcome. That let's talk to this person to get something in the next 2 to 3 weeks. But
Yeah.
I nowadays have started treating networking as building lifelong relationships, and those connections. You may not get the outcome or the result in the next 2 to 3 weeks, but you may something in the next 2 to 3 years. It's those relationships, like Raj mentioned. Once you develop that relationship, that bond, that
Yeah.
you have a person in some XYZ organization who's looking out for you, who you can reach out as a mentor, as a coach, and seek various responses to your questions. So I think that approach in how we go about networking, with that expectation that let me speak with this person because he or she may be able to get me a referral. I think that approach is what we need to change as immigrants and international students. Go with the intention of building relationship and not have any expectation. And then if it yields something, well and good. If it doesn't, then you have a friend, right?
No, you raised a very valid point, Abhishek, and like this is a very honest conversation, right? We are newcomers, we are looking for job, because let's admit it, like, you need to pay your bills, and you have all sorts of things going on in your mind. So these thoughts do come to your mind, like when you're there for a networking session. Oh, look at how this person can help me, or this person might help me in my job search strategy. I wouldn't discount all those thoughts, because we all are humans. But then we also have to understand that, okay, you're connecting with the person for the first time. You've selected or chosen that person for an information interview because you're already strategic about it. You're not choosing anybody, just on in the community, to talk to. You're
Right.
interested for a certain reason. You're talking to it talking to that person for a specific reason, but you just have to, give it time. And I kind of, like, created friends, as you say, during this entire journey. And then you have to, like, keep that relationship alive as well. I mean, it's not that you connected, but also I would like to mention that if you're connecting with, let's say, 10 people over a week, or something of that sort, it's not that you would click with everybody, or because it's a two-way communication, right? There'll always be certain professionals or certain folks who would be more interested in you, who'd be, just sense that during the conversation, right? We all are sensing beings. And then, you take the relationship in that manner, right? Like you and I developed
Absolutely.
that networking relationship. We were introduced, and we are connected till date. So it's for a reason. And so these are some of the things also that I would like to mention when you think about networking.
Fair enough. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that, Divya. Rajdeep, a question for you. Three-part question. Were you clear on what you wanted when you were moving to Canada? Did you have a timeline in place that, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, what was your timeline, that by this time I need to get a job? And then how did you manage your finances? We all heard that you were able to secure a wonderful job in 2 months, but then, did you have mitigation or contingent plans to plan for your finances, that once you run out of your savings, what is it that you would have done or undertaken to sustain and support yourself in a new country?
Absolutely, that's a great question. I think it's a relevant question as well to a lot of people coming in as well. Um, so in terms of, like, when I decided to move here, I had an extremely well-paying job. Let's put it that way, as a product manager in a multinational, which is essentially the dream, right? I took that. I handed in my papers one day, and I said, "Guys, I'm dropping everything to move to Toronto." And everyone was like, "What the hell is in Toronto? Why, like, you know?" And when I did make that decision, it took a lot of courage, obviously. And to the second part of your question, right? It's the monetary, fortunately for me, the monetary aspect wasn't the first thing that sprang to my mind. For me, the bigger point was, what do I explain? Like, how do I explain a 4-month gap on my resume? That's my bigger concern. I don't want to, like, I'm a busybody in personal life. I like to do 10 things at once, and I've never, like, I don't take days off from work. Like, I love what I do, right? And that was my main concern. And when I quit my old job at ADP and moved to Toronto, I set myself a target of 3 months.
Okay.
And I said, irrespective of whether or not I run out of money, if I don't get a job in 3 months, I'm going to just pack up and go back home and keep my career going, because that's number one for me. And luckily, it didn't come to that, as you know. But yeah, in my mind, I was really, really clear. And even when I was setting out, I told my manager in my previous company that, look, I'm just going to explore what it's going to be. And I also, fortunately, because ADP is such a big company, they also have a significant presence in Canada. So I also made some moves there, tried to network within ADP Canada to see if there were any openings for product managers here. But I did keep that avenue open to say, look, if I do not make it there, I trust I can come back here. And he said, yeah, of course, you're a great guy. Going back to the networking point that obviously,
Right.
You do want to have that rapport with people, even though you don't work with them anymore, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, and essentially 3 months was like my deadline, and I said, if I don't get a job in 3 months, I'm going to go back and keep my career going. And that's how I would have acted if things hadn't panned out the way they have. That's what I would have done.
And thank you for sharing that. And you said that 3 months because you don't want to have that big of a gap in your resume. But for anyone else who's coming to Canada, international student or immigrant, what should be their plan of action? When they come to a new country, what is what should be their plan of action? Based on what you just mentioned for yourself.
Absolutely. So I want to go back to a point that Divya mentioned, that how close your profile is and how feasible it is for you to relocate to another geography entirely and then find a job. Her role, my role are typically global roles. A product manager, regardless of which country they are in, focus on the same key product management principles.
Absolutely.
And I think that is a really key thing to consider. And it's also the first question you asked in this second series. Is what is it that you actually want, right? What kind of role you're really looking for, and what is your expectation in making this whole quantum move in the first place? Do you think you will be able to find these jobs that you think you want? Again, there's no one shoe fits all kind of situation, right? It's very, very subjective, and it's very, very closely related to your experience so far and your desired experiences going forward. You can, for example, a law student, who's early stage law, just graduated from whatever law courses are in India. That person immigrating to Canada, expecting to essentially apply the same knowledge and the same principles here, probably would find it very, very difficult to even crack interviews, and then by some happenstance they crack an interview. Holding down a job is another thing entirely, right? So essentially, you have to have a really clear mind as to how does your previous experience enable you to sort of build on that in an entirely alien atmosphere. And somewhere you have no standing really, apart from the network that you already have built.
Thank you. So would it be fair to assume that knowing what you want and how your career aspirations align with what you're looking for in a new country, should be relevant, right? You cannot just pack up your bags and move to a new country in pursuit of a new job, right? You have to do the research up front. You need to know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what is it that you're looking for, and how relevant that job is in that foreign country. Like you mentioned, as a product manager, as a talent development partner, those are global roles, right? And either India, either Canada, there's not going to be much of a change. But law in India is going to be different from law in Canada, and if you are making that transition, then it's going to be a difficult transition, right? So thank you so much for sharing that, Raj. To you, Divya, I know that we had a couple of conversations around what is it that you were looking for: change management, consulting, talent development partner. How was that for you, figuring out what is it that you want to do, and going about that search process?
Yeah, I think connecting it back to what Rajdeep and Abhishek you just mentioned, yes, you have to, and I think this transferable skills phrase did not come up, but as you were speaking, I realized that the phrase which is used is transferable skills. Whether I heard that a lot. Whether your skills are transferable or not. So roles like ours are pretty global in nature, like a lawyer or a medical professional. They might have to undergo a lot of it. So yes, knowing what you want is really important. uh, so, I mean, like, can you repeat the question again for me? Like, what was your original question?
Were you clear on what is it that you were looking for,
Yeah.
and how did that clarity come to you?
I think I was kind of clear. I'll be very honest. I was
Okay.
clear. I was clear from the start that I want to build my career in this organizational development, effectiveness, change management kind of
Hmm.
space. Though change management as a concept was, or I'm not sure, it's still not very huge back in India. These were some of the terminologies or concepts I picked up. Like people change management is huge in Canada. So I was clear that way. When I came, I was a little confused because this is a very specialized segment within the HR space as well. And then you have HRPA and people wanting to do CHRP, CHRL. Only the maybe the HR folks can relate to these terminologies. These are those certifications which you do. Again, what I've heard and known is that not that you would have to do these certifications to get a job, or these certifications will only get you a job. But yeah, I mean, they look very good on your resume, and people are able to relate to it because it's Canadian, right? It's There's a Canadian tag to it. But I think 2-3 months down the line, I realized that I'm not going to invest into this certification because this is more aligned for professionals who want to be like core, like HR business partner kind of roles. I was like, my skill set and my experience and where I want to build my experience, that's more important. Where you want to go
Right.
is in this space, and that is the reason I kind of tweak my resume, rebuild my resume around the kind of work which was more inclined to that. And 4 to 5 months down the line, like I mentioned, I was in my mind, thinking whether I should take this process cert because it's a costly certification. Let's admit
Absolutely.
it's like
Yeah.
three, and you also completed that. Like
Mm.
it's a 3 to 4K investment, and it can be a lot for someone who's just moved. Like you do not have maybe
Mm.
that much amount of funds to support. But in the end, I kind of took that decision that this is something which is really going to help me, like first and foremost, upskill myself, right? More than anything, more than just getting a job. And I had the bandwidth to do it, so I took it. Like, again, a disclaimer that everybody's situation is not the same as well. Like I
Right.
know of a professional who used to do an odd job. I shouldn't even say odd job, like no job is odd, right? But as the stereotypical word goes, used to work in the night shift because he had a family to support, and in the daytime he used to
Mm.
do his job search strategy. So one great thing I think about Canada, which I forgot to mention, which is a clear difference between back in India and here, is I can just compare India. I cannot comment anywhere else. Is that every job is kind of respected. You are respected over here for anything you do, and I think that is one of the great things which you can leverage as soon as you
Mm.
come over here. If you feel that you are a little stressed about your finances and everything, like there is no harm in doing anything for some amount of time just to support yourself. Or maybe like taking 2-3 months, like Rajdeep said, you can have kind of a deadline. We all like deadlines, right? Because we do get stressed out, right? We do get anxious. Like let me say it, that you to take some timeline in mind, that okay, if by this time I do not get anything of my choice, I might want to take up something meanwhile, and like, and by side, you want to pursue that. Because sitting at home, like finding jobs, and it's a stressful process. That's why you have to diversify your strategy. You have to do informational interviews, you have to do volunteering, but sometimes you
Hmm.
have to pay the bills. So that's the reality. So there is no harm in doing that for some time until you find something, which is closely aligned to what you want.
Absolutely. No, can think of, my own experience. I worked at Instacart last year, and that is what I used as a talking point to getting Canadian experience, right? So anything that helps you bridge that gap is a move in the right direction. So thank you for sharing all of those points. Last two questions, I promise. Um, so the second last question, I'm curious to understand, what in your opinion do you think um, the from a support and resource perspective would have aided you in your job search process? If those things were available, would have made your life easier. And I'll ask that question to Rajdeep first, if that's okay.
For sure. I guess a forum where I could meet other people who are in the same stage of life, essentially in the process of relocating to a new country.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's But the thing is, there are forums like that. However, there are no forums that put professionals in touch with each other. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
people giving each other professional advice into like the conversation that we're having right now. I never
Right.
had this before coming to Canada, and I would have loved to. Somebody who just gives us the lowdown on what the ground realities are when it comes to a job search, right?
Absolutely.
Maybe I'll give you an example as well. I had to come here and do a certified Scrum product owner certification. Something,
Mm-hmm.
something. It's kind of like a wedge in the door. Something that will allow you to essentially get through to that initial screening stage. Does this person have a CSPO? Okay, bring him in for an interview. That kind of thing, right? If I had known this on day one, maybe it wouldn't have even, maybe that job search would have gone a lot faster than what
Right.
it did. I'm sure it went very, very quickly, but it would have been a lot faster if that information was available up front, or even a forum to discuss things like, oh, this is what I'm looking for. This is absolutely not what I'm looking for. More importantly,
Mm.
right? That would have been an immense help. Um, Apart from that, I think from a resume perspective as well, you know, um, like the resume I used for job applications in India was long winded. It was talking about how I could work cross location, cross functional, but then
Mm.
but then when I moved to this side of the pond, I realized, we let's talk about outcomes now, right? Business outcomes, customer outcomes, things like that, and the impact really of the work that we are doing. So
Right.
these are, I think, the two key things that would have made the move a lot more or a lot less stressful than it was, for sure.
For sure. Divya, I have, a couple of things that I want to add to you, what you said, Raj, but, let's hear what, Divya has to add to the support and resources that would have made your job search, easier.
Yeah. I think all these newcomer settlement agencies, they also have their pre services as well, which we also took before moving over
Mm-hmm.
here.
Mm-hmm.
I think we took it from Access. I don't remember from where, but yeah, they have their pre-arrival services as well, which also give you a little bit sense of like they have those sessions and videos. You can go over how to use LinkedIn and how to make your resume and things like that. And then once you come over here, similar newcomer settlement agencies like Access or JobStart, they provide you post arrival services as well. Like Fresh Start Hub is also one of those examples which is providing you post arrival services. So of course those services help you not just in job search, I think just settling overall. You can avail a lot of services from there, be it the resume. Like Rajdeep mentioned, resume is a little different over here, than what we use, at least what I used back in India.
Right.
So knowing how to create it, that can help, some sort of guidance, mentor. I avail the Triac mentorship program as well, which is they have these partnership with these newcomer settlement agencies where they kind of assign you a mentor within your industry. You can even choose your mentor they can offer you, and you can decide whether you want to go with this. You have to tell them, give them a brief download to the newcomer settlement agency, that what kind of mentor do you want. I feel that's also helpful, similar to what Fresh Start Hub is trying to do. Similar thing, I would say. So TRIEE, that prior
Right.
settlement. They, like Fresh Startup has its mentorship programs. They have their mentorship. They're a little long, like 2 to 3 months period. Then
Mm-hmm.
access, etc. They provide you speed mentoring as well. So all these two things do help you, because what you need, Abhishek, is you need an advocate for yourself, right? While you're conducting informational interviews, like at the end of the day, you are expecting that, okay, if I need any help, any guidance to review my resume, or any referral I might need, if let's say any opportunity comes and I see that I've developed a relationship with this person, then it kind of helps you, right? So I think these are just some of the things or some of the resources which I feel can be helpful. And attending these sessions, which are organized by Fresh Startup, by other communities, they gave me a lot of connection points to kind of connect with people, and then build the relationship or hold interviews with them, than randomly approaching a person who might or might not be interested. I mean, I had a good amount of success rate there as well, but you have a greater amount of success rate if you kind of had listened to someone, or you have read about that person, and then you can kind of reach out. So these are
Absolutely.
some of the resources which can help.
Yeah. No, I 100% resonate with everything both of you have mentioned, and I think going back to Rajdeep's point on having this forum of like-minded individuals, I think something that helped me personally was having a mentor, a coach who had gone through similar experiences. Just being able to bounce off ideas that were in my mind, that okay, what is it that I should do regarding coffee chats? How should I send in mails? What should be my job search strategy? Having someone who resonates with you, understands what you're going through, and is not judging you for on your job search process, job search strategy. I think that is something that everyone needs. And your point, Divya, on people needing that advocate, people who understand those challenges, people who've gone through the similar journeys and experiences. And what we are doing today came up as a result of a survey feedback that was submitted by immigrants. They wanted to hear what you have done in going about your job search process, and by sharing the tips, by sharing everything around informational interviews, networking, resume templates, how to send in mails. These are valuable tips that everyone will take away and incorporate in their job search process. So on to the last question, what would be your last words of wisdom for people who are in our shoes that we were in a couple of years ago? You can
Yeah.
go first, Divya.
I was asking Rajiv, I think it's really important first to believe in yourself. I know that it sounds like a cliche, but like I mentioned, I did get an opportunity which was more of an HR business partner position. But like I said, that was not something which I was totally aligned to, so I did not take that up. Again, owing to the circumstances I was in, I was able to make that decision to not to take that opportunity and wait for what I want, because there were certain things which were going on for me at that point, some interviews, etc. So it's important to believe in yourself, like what do you want. And secondly, like I said, diversify your strategy, right? Just do not apply on jobs, because a lot of them are hidden jobs, like we say. And that is where informational interviews, you're volunteering, you have to keep yourself busy as well. And you also have to diversify your strategy, not to just focus on job search the entire day. Like you've come to a new country, it sounds easier, and at times, oh, I've not got a job, like, am I, you think mentally, am I allowed to enjoy? You're of course allowed to enjoy, right? It's a planned decision. You've taken this, and you have some kind of support, to back you as well, like emotionally, mentally, or like even financially. We all plan for it, right? When we're moving, we just do not pack our bags and just go like that. So enjoy the time here, like it's a great country, like take walks. Like I developed this as a hobby now, like I go for, like a lot of walks, runs, like I was not very active, in this physical fitness and all, but I'm trying to change my lifestyle there. Of course, under the COVID guidelines, under the provincial guidelines, try and explore, whatever you can nearby, and maybe, take up a hobby. We all have developed cooking as a hobby, like even if we don't want to. So it's important to, like de-stress yourself, because trust me, like job search can be stressful, and I totally agree, especially when you've moved to a new country and you were kind of, satisfied, you were doing well over there as well. So this is probably like my last step.
Thank you for that, Rajdeep.
Awesome. I think that was great advice. Believe in yourself, and what I would like to leave people with is, don't be afraid to ask for help, or don't be ashamed to ask for help. Oftentimes people just don't reach out because they think the other person will think less of them. That's absolutely, at least in this forum, that's not the case. And I think I'm right in saying that even when it comes to what Fresh Start Hub is doing, you guys, this is essentially the kind of conversations you want to elicit in the population, right? In the people who are listening and in the people who are going through this phase in life. So yeah, I would say don't be afraid to ask for help, because
right,
we're in this together, and only by helping each other can we get somewhere, right?
And that is what networking is, right? Like, the whole motivation of networking is reaching out to people and seeking answers to questions that you don't have, right? How do you go about a job search process? What informational interviews are? I've asked all sorts of stupid questions, without being feeling afraid, or what the people would think by asking those questions. And that's how you build relationship. Divya mentioned an important point on being vulnerable. And that's a key element on building relationship. But thank you so much for sharing those words of wisdom. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with both of you. I hope I didn't bore you with my questions, but thank you so much for taking out your valuable time on a weekday, in the busy evening, when Divya emphasized that walking and exploring Canada is really important. So thank you so much.
No, thank you so much, Abhishek. Thank you for taking us back to those days. I think it was really nice, and thank you for inviting us over. Thank you, Rajdeep. Thank you, David.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure to be here, and I think it's important to be retrospective and reflective of the time that was past, and in that way we can be fortunate for all that we have today. Absolutely,
for sure.
Pleasure to be
here. Thank you so much. I wish you both a lovely evening ahead, and talk soon.
Yep. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Abhishek. Bye-bye.